So, and then Cherie, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to make you the host.
Oh, that might be better. Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
I
Yes.
didn't have my microphone all the way in.
Oh, okay. And then now you're the host now, so you should be able to control your video yourself.
Okay, let me see.
There we
Okay.
go. I see you now.
Yay! How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Okay, so I had the greatest technology scare today because I did 8 hours of work for a client and I was saving all day, and all of a sudden I couldn't find my file as I was about to attach it and send it to him. You know, of course, the file that's due today, right? So
Right.
I'm like hyperventilating, but fortunately, went to the good old temp files and there it was.
Yes.
So I wouldn't have been a happy camper tonight if I had to do 8 hours of work again. Let's just say that.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, yes. Well, we definitely want to welcome you. We have people here today very interested pre-holiday to hear from you and what you're doing in blockchain. So first of all, how do we say your name? Because I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly.
Yeah, so my name's pronounced Cherie.
Cherie. Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone calls me Cherie. I won't say everyone. A lot of people do. So I should
Yeah.
remember. Cherie. And how you say your last name?
Aimee.
Aimee. Okay.
Yeah.
And where are you from? Because that sounds like a francophone name.
Yeah, so my mom just actually named my brother and I French names, but
Oh,
I'm from New York.
okay. Okay.
um,
You're from Manhattan, Brooklyn,
I'm from
Bronx?
actually outside of New York. So
Okay.
I was born in Queens, but
Okay.
very very young we moved to Westchester, and then I grew up mostly in Connecticut. So
Okay.
I'm pretty much used to just being around the tri-state
Mhm.
area, and I'm in Manhattan all the time. So
Okay. Well, I was
yeah.
going to say, because I did not hear a New York accent, and my grandmother lived in Harlem for all of my life and much of her own life. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, but I hear the Westchester, Connecticut.
Yeah.
I do.
Yes, absolutely.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? You know, the start of your journey. What you do, etc.
Yeah. My story is pretty grand. It's pretty wild actually. So I'll give you a summary, and then you can feel free to dive into whatever area of my story you would like. First of all, Cherie, I just want to thank you for inviting me on here. It's
Absolutely.
really it's an honor, and I love what you're building. And I have to say, it's so aligned with where I found myself right now in the blockchain space. I really do. You'll hear more about how I got involved, but where I've really landed is realizing that there's a few in the field that seem to know all the information and share it amongst themselves. And I realized that information really wasn't getting down to the masses, the people that
Mhm.
really need to know what's going on. So I love what you're creating here, and I just stand by everything. So I'm excited to jump into this juicy conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, and hello to everybody watching. It's just again such an honor to be here. So thank you for listening to what I have to share tonight, and feel free to ask me any questions you have. Really, nothing's off limits. So um, my background is actually as a CEO of a tech firm. I taught myself years ago, I would say back in like late 1990s, how to code myself. It was literally, I was hired during like the dot-com boom, where companies were really just, the startups were just looking for anybody.
Right. Anyone with the
And
pulse that could think
anyway, right.
strategically. You know, they're
the,
like,
the
yes, we like you.
Yes,
Come over.
the joke was that if you had thumbs, like you could get it. I mean, it was pretty crazy. Um, but I realized very quickly that I was assigned to build these websites and do all this branding and networking, or branding and marketing, that I didn't actually understand. And I went home that night panicked, saying, do I tell my boss I don't know how to do this? You made a mistake. You hired the wrong person. Now, again, this is my very first tech company. I was a history major in college. I went to Wesleyan University, so I majored in liberal arts. Um, it was something that I just found fascinating, learning a little bit about coding, and before I knew it, I was hired on. So
And
I
what
went home.
language did you learn back in the day?
Yes, exactly. So I went home that night and panicked. I mean, I'm talking ultimate um, panic attacks, not knowing what to do, embarrassed, ashamed. And I took a couple of deep breaths that night, and something told me, you know what, just drive to Barnes and Nobles at the
Mhm.
time. And I went to this store and I found every book on coding, HTML, JavaScript, everything I could find. And I'm like, I don't know if this is possible for me to pull off, but I'm going to give it one last shot.
Mhm.
So I went in the next day, literally with a stack of 10 books. I just tried to sneak them in. And when I tell you, I sat with my first assignment, which was a huge website. And this is back when we had to code them from scratch. There was
Mhm.
no WordPress, there was no none of that. And when I tell you, for the next 3 months, I would take 3 books, 3 of these programming for dummies, HTML for dummies books, and I would go to the bathroom every about 15 minutes, and I would take the part of the assignment and I would try to break it down and be like, what do you think I would have to do to build this?
Mhm.
And I would go into the bathroom, literally sit on the toilet, and I would be in there for 10 to 15 minutes, actually going to the index, the back of the book, to look up keywords that I thought could possibly describe what they were asking me to do. I
Mhm.
didn't even know what they were asking me to do to even know what chapter to go to. I had to go to the index. And I did this for 3 months and ended up with this site that was built for this client that had spent, I don't know how much money on it.
Mhm.
This was, a really fast growing startup. And I was so proud of myself. And I was so shocked. Like, if people only knew what it took to build this. And I ended up in a very, very short amount of time, less than 6 months, becoming their top programmer.
Wow.
And yeah, and this company blew up. I mean, blew up from like 20 employees all the way to, I don't know, 400, 500. And, we had a quick, really awesome run for a couple of years until the dot-com bust and
Mhm.
everything came crashing down. And the important part I want to share about that is there were so many amazing coders that were better than me in terms of skill, knowledge. I was one of 5 to 7 left standing when everybody else got their pink slip.
Wow. And why do you think that was?
I think because I was so hungry to learn
Mhm.
that everybody around me felt it. And there was no mistaking it. And there was no question from a CEO standpoint or uh, any of the last, founding members. There was no question
Mhm.
that the one person that would help us close out any remaining clients, or should we maintain some type of uh, existence still, there was no question in their mind that I could handle whatever challenge came in.
Mhm. Did you ever show your bosses the books?
It's so funny. I still to this, because I share the story now
Mhm.
and I laugh. At the time, it was embarrassed. I was actually embarrassed. I didn't see that as being resourceful.
Mhm.
I didn't have Facebook and social media and people like me now coming on to share with you about what success actually looks like,
Mhm.
right? So I love sharing that story because it really honestly is how I've achieved so much in my life. It's it's not been because I've been the most knowledgeable or the best or known as the best.
Mhm.
It's that the energy I radiate is one of excitement, passion, enthusiasm, willing to learn. And what one thing I've come to realize over the years, especially now that I've myself interacted with more millionaires and billionaires and people that have run enterprises and understand wealth generation and
Mhm.
having employees and keeping up with the latest, is that if you put yourself in their shoes for 2 seconds and you say, if I had that much money, if I had resources at my disposal, and I wanted to select somebody to be by my side that I knew would be loyal, that I knew would be hardworking, that wouldn't complain because of whatever, right? There's always something to complain about. I would choose that person over the more competent skill wise.
Mhm.
And that's what I've grown to learn even more about success and learning and positioning myself in front of people that understand how to make money, that understand um, how to have an innovative tech in front of their face and then take it and run,
Right. And I
right?
think part of what you have, which I have a similar story to share, is the mixture of hard skills and soft skills. You know, a lot of times, I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room either, but I am also very resourceful and I know people. And I know how to be around people. And there's something very comforting, I think, in that when you start talking to people who either are CEOs or management level where they're like, okay, you know, Cherie is dependable. She'll make sure that the assignment is done. So, I mean, my story was I went in for a job interview that I was totally unqualified for. But I said to the woman, if you hire me, I'm going to work after hours and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to make, you know, to learn what I need to learn to do this job. And she hired me and she gave me a chance. I was at that company for 5 years and I learned so much. And what I do today is a function of that experience and me, you know, they give me an assignment and there was nobody that had the operations manual. Like literally I had to sit at my desk and think, well, how would I put this together?
Right.
Which that's why I asked you about the strategic thinking, you know?
Yeah.
You kind of have to say, okay, if I, you know, this person gave me this assignment, how do I put it together?
Exactly.
And you
Exactly.
have to pull from different resources. So I
Yes.
definitely can appreciate that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love sharing that, as I'm sure you do too, because especially when it comes to technology,
Hmm.
I mean, that's probably one of the most intimidating, next to finance, one of the most intimidating industries,
Hmm.
and so most people take a look at that industry and think, how in the world do I break through into those industries?
Yeah.
And, and also what value could I possibly have
Yeah.
standing next to a developer,
Right.
right? Um, and I love that you mentioned it's a combination of like, these hard skills and soft skills. And what's really interesting is I'm actually no longer a tech developer, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but I'm no longer the tech person. So in uh, coming back into technology, because I left it for a while, everything had changed. All of a sudden, now we're talking about blockchain. And
Hmm.
I almost found myself feeling those same initial vibes that I did back in late 1999, 2000, which was this is something new.
Hmm.
This is something taking off. This is something that's going to bring value. And while I didn't know it at the time, the fact that I get so excited about something new, I realize that is going to be my biggest strength. And so, more than anything, more than even the tech part of blockchain, which is incredible if you get the opportunity to actually learn it. And now they've got like certifications and all that stuff. So, I mean, my gosh, like everyone's in better shape than I was even jumping into this. But if you can get excited knowing this is so much more than a technology,
Mhm.
right? Like this is our future being laid out at your feet it's the future of humanity, the world, but even your family. Like this is an opportunity to get in on the ground level.
Mhm.
And when I joined blockchain and was a little bit nervous because I'm like, okay, I'm reading and researching about all this, but I'm like, it's so complicated. Sometimes you read a couple of articles, and you're like, am I ever going to grasp this? And, blockchain is definitely something where you can eventually understand the bigger picture of all of it. But sometimes when you dive deep in it, it can spin your mind a little bit because you have all these questions. But that's the stuff I embrace because when you dive into the complications or the things that make you go, but this doesn't make sense, that is my cue and should be everyone's cue to say, that's where I want to bring the conversation to.
Exactly. And the people that makes billions of dollars are the problem solvers as well. So we're also
Mhm.
asking ourselves what are the, biggest problems that people have. And, right now it's interoperability and mass adoption
Yeah.
and the infrastructure from fiat currency to crypto. So, that's we have a saying in our group, which is a saying that, of course, is Wayne Gretzky. Uh, um, Wayne Gretzky said, skate to where the puck is going. We have a guy, Perez Madison, in our group who says, no, we're creating the puck.
Yes, I love it.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So how did you
absolutely.
get into blockchain?
Yeah, so my story is pretty interesting. So I ended up losing my tech company a couple of years ago, probably almost 10 years ago, due to a really extreme health crisis. And the health crisis actually left me fighting for my life um, on life support in a coma for months.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
So I have a pretty wild background story of what happened to me in the past 10 years. Um, I mean, incredible, like incredible, not just on the physical side, but even a whole spiritual awakening
Hmm.
and really understanding like, why are we here on earth and what's going on here? And what are we really trying to create? I mean, we were taught all these things growing up and being raised, and then you get to be an adult, and it's like, whoa, wait a second. This is a lot more than I thought I was going to be growing up into. What do I do with all of this? And so my health challenge and my spiritual awakening really shook that out of me. So I was kind of gone for about 10 years, recovering and rehabilitating my body. It's been a lot. I even have a heart transplant now. Like my story is
Oh,
really, yeah,
wow.
my story is really, really deep. But what's amazing is, this transplant happened. The heart transplant happened 4 years ago. So I came back and I was just like, oh my God, I'm learning to rehabilitate my body. And I ended up falling into just sharing my story of what had happened to me and bringing value to other people, using things like Facebook Live, like we're on now, and um, sharing a little bit of, my background in tech and stuff like that, but mostly building just a new international community of people that had no idea who I was because I was gone so long. So it was really me starting from scratch. Like all the success of the past was just nobody really knew that except for former
Mhm.
coworkers. So when I mean like I just restarted, I mean that. And I used social media to actually share my story. And within a few short years, it just landed me lots of interviews, TV shows, just incredible influence and attention. And my goal started to become, I'm going to use the attention on me to bring attention to the causes
Hmm.
that I really know need attention, because that's just who I am. I've never really I'm building, money and generational wealth and all that and learning from the best, but it's not really the money. It's the the ending of the generational trauma that has just been passed down generation after generation. We've this mindset that we're never going to get ours, and we're never going to come together to make up for what happened to our ancestors and all. Like, my mission just became so big,
Hmm.
but I first had to bring the attention on me so I could get on national TV, so I could be seen as somebody that people can talk to. And this is, I don't even really understand how exactly you found me, but part of me building that thought leadership is how you found me in the first place.
Hmm.
And so I've used that, and because of that, I've met many people.
Right.
Thought leadership allows you to be seen as somebody worth listening to. And I think when you have causes that you really want to uh, uh, talk about, you have to have a platform to share your voice. And
Hmm.
this is what you've created here. You've created a platform for all of us to come together and share our voices. Whereas normally, people might not be willing to listen to us or take the time to help and say, hey, can I help, your organization learn about blockchain,
Hmm.
right?
Or
Because,
you may think that you're the only Black person,
right,
in your community that cares about blockchain, and
exactly.
you have now all of a sudden you've got a whole community of people,
Yeah,
hundreds of people who come together who really care about it.
exactly. And that's why I was so excited when
Mhm.
Audrey reached out to me. I was like, there's a whole community.
Yes, we're here.
So,
We're
I
knocking
mean,
down doors one at a time.
yes, I mean, there's so much I want to talk to you about, how, like, even beyond this interview, whatever I could do to help you guys, I am so excited.
Thank you.
Um, but yeah, and so back to how I got involved, it
Mhm.
was through building that thought leadership and being known that I was able to meet lots of key people, lots of super connectors, we call them, people that, like you, just tend to know a lot of people. And through that, I had a friend that was starting his own blockchain, a startup, and it was in supply chain logistics for blockchain, which is an incredible use
Mhm.
case for data on the blockchain. And that is where I got hands-on, behind the scenes, rapid, on the job experience of what it is like to take a company from nothing to literally, we've raised 30 million.
I saw that
Um,
in your bio, so I definitely want to
yeah,
talk about that. But before we do,
yeah.
you mentioned becoming a thought leader, and we
Hmm.
have a lot of people in our community that want to become blockchain thought leaders for a specific industry that they've been in for 10, 20 years. So I'd
Hmm.
love for you to dig a little bit deeper. If you were to give people some advice
Yeah.
on, maybe the platforms they should use, some of the things that they should be doing. Should they be blogging? Should they be doing video? Things like that that can really help them, some tangibles that they can execute pretty easily. What would you suggest?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really the fastest way is to, I'll give you the 3 steps and then I'll tell you what the game changer is. So really what you want to do is, number one, identify, how do you want to be even seen by the world? What is your bigger message, right? It's beyond, like, let's say I shelved some of the items at Walmart, right? You can either brand yourself as the best Walmart shelver ever, and you could totally do that and make fun content around that. Or you can say why you're a shelver. Either way, you have to identify what you want to be known as, because I could have identified myself to say I'm a brand expert, I'm a tech expert, I'm this or that. But see, with me specifically, I had a much bigger mission.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was always very clear on my mission to make a massive impact on humanity. It was very, very clear, even literally from my wheelchair. So, but either way, you just want to identify. So that's step one. You want to identify what you want to be actually known as, because
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like once you know that, then you know what the content should be. Now, the content is going to surround any of your thoughts. It really actually doesn't need to be complicated. It really has to do with the more authentic you can share about yourself, how you think, how you strategize. What it does is it allows the other leaders to see you.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to you sharing, sometimes you'll see on social media, people just share really popular viral videos. And it's like, yeah, that gets some tons of likes. That content is not going to get somebody like me or like Cherie to be like, oh my God, we got to pull them in. You know what I
Wow.
mean? So you want to share stuff that's real, because at the end of the day, leaders see leaders, and leaders are also the ones that are going to pull you up to each new level. So the real big key is what kind of content is going to allow other leaders in the space to say, oh, this person's different. They're actually thinking for themselves. And the kind of content you want to put out is really three things. It can be written, it can be audio, or it can be video. Very, very simple. Nothing has to be perfect. You just have to do it. So for example, if you want to use audio, I think some time ago in the beginning, I might have used SoundCloud, which is a free app. I think you could pay for like bigger storage or something, but
Mm-hmm.
it is free. You could set up a quick account and you can actually just upload recordings, maybe from your phone or something like that. Again, nothing needs to be perfect. You just have to get your message. And when I say message, it's just your thoughts at this point. Because as a thought leader, you are growing with your growing audience. You're not necessarily coming on and all of a sudden being an instant expert out of the blue, which people can do, but at the same time, you've got to allow your space room to grow. Because if you really want to build a massive impact, if you really want to hit a lot of people, you have to train your audience to grow with you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you come on as if you know everything, you really run the risk of being replaced by the other expert. So one of the things that really works for me is I come on as I'm learning. So I ended up, being labeled an influencer in blockchain, very, very quickly. But it was because the content I shared was, hey, I just read these articles last night. I stayed up till 4 a.m. I read these articles last night. Here's a quick summary of what I learned.
That's something that I do within BBC, and
Do you?
it's the truth, and it's authentic too. So
Yes.
all of us as a community are learning together. And what I've noticed is I'll bring an article, and then Talisha will bring another article, and then Eric, and then Tawana, and then all of a sudden we're all sharing articles, and it's like, did you hear this? Well, did you hear this? And we're able to have a much larger and broader conversation about a topic than if I were sitting back waiting for everything to be perfect before I said it, everything. And I will say something else as well. I do YouTube videos
Yeah.
for the group. YouTube, Facebook, like I'll do one and then I'll post it all over. And someone wrote in the comments, Cherie, you're saying that word incorrectly. It's pronounced like this, and and I could have taken it personally, but I was like, hey, that person just helped me out. They just want me to sound more like an expert, so they're telling me the correct way of saying this term. So, you are going to get that feedback from your audience as well. And like you said, grow with your audience. You don't have to have it all perfect.
Absolutely. And I was in a very similar community to this. It was a different audience, but that's where people first saw me learning. So exactly what you're describing literally is the beginning stages of that thought leadership. It's what I ended up doing was, it was actually the people in the community that saw me constantly getting excited and posting the articles. And it kind of started from there, because what happens is, even if you're in a smaller community of a couple hundred people, they'll still notice, like, for example, you just mentioned a couple people's names, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they obviously were somewhere in the top of your head.
Mm-hmm.
That's what thought leadership is.
Well, they were on the call too.
Oh, okay. Well, that's part of it.
Yes.
That is part of it, though. This is why I'm saying, like, it doesn't have to be perfect or complicated. It's because people saw me show up everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did they post the articles, they showed up on the call.
Yeah.
Right? That is exactly what got me to where I am.
Right.
Is I did it consistently.
These steps is what helped you become the number 6 most influential woman in blockchain. So I really want people to think about that, because if you want to be the top 10 blockchain fill in the blank expert in your industry, taking what Cherie is doing and saying, how can I apply that to myself? And now Cherie's getting calls from people like us because she's on a list and because she's out there and people are seeing her. So, I just want to really make sure that everyone understands that if that's the game that you want to play, is, you don't have to wait until everything is perfect. I am a fan for audio. I'm a fan of Spreaker. It's $6 a month for the lowest package, but for me, it's worth it because, when I was using it, because you can go in and do something in a podcast form, and you click one button and it goes to SoundCloud, iTunes, like all the major podcast players, like with one button. Yes. So I really like Spreaker for audio. And then what I do with my videos is I will so I do videos in Zoom, and then I just upload them, but I will send them to Fiverr, Fiverr, for people in the audience. Send them to Fiverr to a transcriber. And you can get the person to transcribe it, and then you can edit it and turn it into a blog or an article, or you could just put the transcription up there, and Google then is able to read it through search engine optimization. They're able to read those keywords, and they're able to, and then you get more traffic to your website because of that. So that's a great tip for people. You can do, record something once and have it used in multiple places.
Yes, repurpose, reuse.
Repurpose, yes.
Yes, I love that. Absolutely. And those are some great tips, again, for content. And like I said, that's really step 2, is creating that content in audio, video or written. And with the written stuff as well, you can just create a free Medium account and instantly you've got a blog platform. So you don't have to make it complicated and say, oh, I've got to go create a website on WordPress now and blah, blah. Like, save that stuff for later.
You can do Medium, or you could do LinkedIn. A lot of people will read LinkedIn articles, and that's free. And then Talicia's saying that Anchor is a great free app for podcasting as well. So
yes, it is.
Yes,
absolutely.
There's a lot of free and low cost things that you can do just to get started with thought leadership. So
absolutely.
I do want to get into Shift Chain though.
Yes. Oh wait,
uh,
let me just drop the third one
oh,
just
the
in case.
third, I'm sorry. So
Yeah,
number
in case
one was
anyone.
what is your message? Number
Yeah,
two is written audio and video. And
yeah.
number three is what?
And number three is I like to refer to as like uh, amplifying. Basically, it's really it's like it's a combination of positioning and amplifying. So now that you've got this content out, it's about the more you put out, it's about really networking and connecting with people that are starting to get used to your content, and then amplifying that out in bigger ways. So like with me, I started getting writers of major media, Forbes, Inc., whatever, really noticing the content I was putting out and really what I was talking about. And now, while I've got a very unique story, I can tell you without a doubt that the greatest, it used to be when my story would get noticed, then people would be like, oh, but she's got a really crazy story about, this tragedy that happened to her. But then once I got on the blockchain, I'm like, yeah, but you can't really say it now that I'm in tech. And the biggest thing that I get is that people always say to me, you just stand out because you're always speaking from your heart. You're always speaking the truth. And I think especially for like the Black community, like we have just been through so much, and there's so much that we need to talk about. I mean, including wealth creation and generational trauma and all of that. So we have a lot to talk about that we really haven't been able to all come together and do this, because I believe because we're all still stuck in the struggle of financial independence. We're all still caught in that. And so we get distracted by everyday life and
Mm-hmm.
everyday drama. Whereas very successful people, the difference is they literally don't have that drama.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, people that even lose millions, they don't have the everyday drama that we have. And I've had to even learn myself, and thankfully my health tragedy really brought this home for me, that it is very important for me that if I'm to take care of my health and my family and live out my dreams, I have got to understand how to put food on my table and not live check to check.
Mm-hmm. That when you don't have to live check to check, and I've been that way for a while now, it opens up so much for you. It really, really does.
Yeah.
When you I heard from a wealthy person years ago that uh, as you're progressing through life, you want to spend more and more time on long-term goals, versus short-term income like today. So the people that do the best are able to spend 30, 40, 50% of their time doing long-term, bigger things, versus having to spend all of their time thinking about the next 2 weeks. So,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
it's the biggest difference.
right.
And so then you go around and you see different communities. You see so many of our men locked up in prisons,
Mm-hmm.
and we just year after year just feel this shame and this burden and this feeling of helplessness. And we know we want to help our people, but we also have to keep food on our
Mm-hmm.
own tables for our own babies. And it's just this cycle that keeps happening over and over and over again. And I really when I got into blockchain and started working for this startup where we raised 30 million,
Mm-hmm.
that was literally, I mean, there was a lot of pre-work up to that, but the actual money was raised in a week.
Wow. So break that down for us, because I'm sure you have a lot of people with their pens and papers ready to hear. First of all, what's your position in that company? Were you in charge of fundraising or?
So I joined initially as again, I joined initially not thinking I was going to be really working for them. It was more just
Mhm.
like, oh, I'll help you guys out, because I'm just always so excited to do things. Again, it's just my personality.
Mhm.
But um, and I very quickly ended up becoming community manager, and we grew it was a Telegram community. We grew that from 0 to 40,000. So very quickly, my role got bigger, and I ended up hiring. I think at the time when it was really growing fast, I hired maybe 10 people in like a week and had to train them. And there was just a lot involved in that. And in the midst of running the community was also, um, oh, can you guys hear me? Or,
Yes, I can
okay,
hear you.
good.
I'm sorry. I
Okay.
thank you.
Oh, no, it's okay. No problem. I can keep talking. No worries. Um, and so it was very early on. So the community was growing rapidly. And at the same time, the founders were working on raising the money, and and so I ended up very quickly again being promoted uh, within like another 2 weeks to director of communications. So I ended up becoming more of like, because I had become so well known on the Telegram chat, and I also already had a brand, I was already used to being interviewed a million times. And so people just automatically were just like, because they saw me on Telegram. Um, when I then went out to blockchain or crypto events, it was like the first person everybody recognized was me. So it was a shock. It was like, I'll never forget. I got asked to speak at this one event. I was so nervous. I was like, what am I gonna say? And I flew out to LA. I got on stage. Well, I listened to everybody speak on stage, and they were so just like technical, and they were just so in their own heads about the tech. And you'll see this a lot at events. They get so in their tech and their product that they're not still really communicating to the general public. It's like they're just saving it for themselves, and
Yeah.
all right, and then they start competing
Well,
with
I
the
think
other.
that's goes back to soft skills again, where
Yes,
some
exactly.
people are very technically inclined, but if you
Yes,
cannot relay that information to different types of people,
yes,
not just coders, but just different types of people in general,
right.
then that's part of the reason why we as communications people have a job. You
Exactly.
communicate verbally. I'm a writer, but part of it is being able to take what the engineer was thinking and translate it into
Exactly.
something that
Yeah.
an executive can say, okay, I can make a decision on that, or
Yes.
a consumer says, yes, I want to buy that or participate in that, etc.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so much I have to say about the communication part, but let me just go one step at a time. But yeah, and that's really what it was, is like they were just like, well, she runs the community so well. She's obviously featured in different, I'd already built a name for myself. So it was kind of like all of a sudden a whole other community had eyeballs on me, which is really what helped. So again, my already existing thought leadership in another area just carried through onto blockchain. So again, when you build thought leadership, it's not necessarily about now you're stuck in one industry, because you've been sharing your thoughts. You've been sharing your values. You didn't just share, hey, I work in Walmart. You shared who you are, what you stand for. And that's why I'm actually able to speak in so many different industries. I mean, I speak in front of top surgeons around the world. It doesn't matter who the industry is. If you tell me the audience, then I know what your pain points are. I know what's holding you back from feeling confident, right, in the field. So it's very easy for me to just be like, oh, okay, I'm talking in front of teenagers. Oh, I'm talking in front of blockchain adults. You know, it's there, and that's what I love so much about thought leadership is how big you can go with it, you know. But I'll tell you, when I stood up on that stage after all these speakers, I was like, oh my God, these people are going to hate me. Because I knew I was going to go up there talking about what it takes to build a community. And it's not about your numbers, and it actually has nothing to do with your product. You know, it's about how are you able to engage people? How are you able to understand where they're coming from and not just make it all about you? And so I sit up there and I talked about what I did with my community and all the things we were doing. And I thought I was just making no sense to them. I received a standing ovation
Wow.
after that talk. And when I stepped off stage, I didn't know what to do. Every investor, CEO of a startup flooded me. And they were like, do you work for other companies? Can we hire you? It was so overwhelming. But it taught me so much. And this is why I'm so passionate about sharing in front of women, in front of diverse audiences, people that feel like they don't have a voice or don't have any value to bring. Just by standing up on that stage and being me was enough to attract all of these investors. And I can now tell you that a year and a half later, from just stepping on that stage, I am surrounded by VC investors. Surrounded.
Right. And a couple of things I want to point out to the audience here.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some people in our community that are shy, that are camera shy,
Mm-hmm.
and that, you know, are shy in terms of getting in front of an audience and interviewing people or sharing thoughts or things like that.
Yeah.
Part of Cherie's story really is, you may be shy or you may be concerned that you're going to make a fool of yourself or whatever, but do it anyway, because part of Chip Chain's ability to raise that money, I'm sure, as well as Cherie's ability to get the opportunities that she's getting as a consultant and thus a community manager, is because she put herself out there. If you're going to be a blockchain consultant, you are going to have to, some sort of way, figure out how to really put yourself out there. If you're looking for the big bucks, you know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll always be subjugated to working for someone else like me or Cherie that will go out there, get the business and say, okay, you know, we'll sub it to you for X amount of dollars. And you don't want to be like that forever. You know, you want to be able to stand on your own 2 feet and do your own sales and business development and build your own community. So you mentioned that you had 40,000 Telegram followers within this community. Did you start off with 0? Did you take it from 0 to 40?
Yeah, it started off at 0.
So a lot of people are going to ask, me included, how in the world did you grow a Telegram group with 40,000 people?
So a lot of it, again, this is again why I'm such a big, this is part of also why I teach this. It's because a lot of people know me as from originally teaching branding and thought leadership. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm not talking about tech and I'm actually speaking to the general public, you know, I've got different audiences. So there's an audience on LinkedIn that's more, you know, when I'm talking to business people. If you see myself on Facebook, more of the other social media platforms, it's all about sharing your message with the world. And it's about sharing from the heart, from your soul, and what you really, really honestly believe, in order to create conscious impact, right? So that's what I just normally do. And it always comes back to that. So one of the reasons why Ship Chain was so successful is not only the team. So the team was definitely like put together very, very well. Everybody had their specialty. A lot of that growing a community is the marketing and the communications messaging, and it's your thought leadership. So if people already know you as somebody that they look up to or whatever, they're going to be curious about what this new business venture you're doing is. So, for example, I just recently launched something that I'm doing for executives in Cancun at the end of the year. And I wasn't sure who would be interested, but it's funny that a lot of fintech people have just, liked it because they're just curious because they know me by now and they're just curious what I'm doing. And so a larger example of that was in growing this company, in growing this community, 40,000. And the CMO of that company is an influencer himself and had a lot of connection with other big influencers as well. So really what happens is a part of your pitching when you're doing a startup is who's actually going to support your product and your mission when you actually get out there. So it's not like they just went out there by themselves and nobody and said, hey, we've got a startup. There was a marketing strategy behind it, and a lot of people with millions of followers helped to push this community that was growing and the excitement around what we were building out into the public. And if you don't have like really well-known influencers or super connectors or people that know a lot of people, it doesn't matter how good your product is, it could fall flat if people don't even know that you exist. So I would say this company was it was a combination of each of the founders have their own separate skill set that just came together and, worked for them. The marketing person behind a lot of it is just, he's very, very connected.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was probably the only other one besides myself that had a public brand, that people really know, like, and trust.
Right.
So in terms of the inflow of members into the community, yeah, it's about getting those people that have connections to groups of people, right? Not just know people, but know like groups of people. And it's, and I call them like super connectors. And it's interesting because I feel like I used to look up to people like that. And I feel like, oh, I've kind of become that because I know a lot of like the top people now that have their own communities built. So it's less about me building my own private community in the business space and more about me connecting with the people with their communities. And my community is just, it's like I said, it's on a different platform, and those are more people that are just learning how to get on video, how to overcome their fears of being seen, how to overcome their fears of being interviewed. I mean, what it takes to go from unknown to being interviewed live on NBC with Megyn Kelly, that doesn't actually happen overnight. You think it would be. You really
It takes
think
years.
It takes years because, and not so much because it can't happen overnight, but because most of us wouldn't even be ready.
Mm-hmm.
So when
the truth is that, so I took a PR, I won't say class is kind of a loose word, but like people like Megyn Kelly and MSNBC and those big conglomerates, they won't even interview you unless you're on YouTube or Instagram and they can see you in action in front of the camera. So I've been on MSNBC before. I was on a show called Your Business, and
nice.
Yeah, and I tell everybody the story of that one day, but that's an interesting story. But yeah, they were able to check me out, and I was able to get my book in the host's hands, and she gave me her real producer's email address, not just the Gmail, but like the real NBC Universal, and said, call her and tell her I sent you. So, yeah. Yeah. So, well, I've
Yeah.
got 10 minutes left because I got another phone call, but I want to go
Yeah.
into what Ship Chain is, a little bit about how you raised 30 million, like super quick, and how we as Black blockchain consultants can help you. Do you have job openings? Do you have certain needs within the organization that some of our people could apply for, or present a portfolio or anything like that, in terms of how we can assist you in your journey?
Yeah. So actually, and I apologize for not making this clear in the beginning, I'm actually not even with ChipChain anymore.
Oh,
So yeah, so I apologize for that misunderstanding. Yeah, so I'm not. I talk about a lot of like, um, what my role was in that, and how we even attracted that kind of attention. But I did end up going off on my own because my message became more about helping more people and really helping to push this into mass adoption. And I knew that as vocal as I was, and it was kind of in the middle of working with them. I ended up on NBC, and I ended up on the Dr. Oz show, and it anytime you're working for a company, that can also make founders uncomfortable, believe it or not. I mean, you'd think they would love it because it would be putting their company out in front of a wider audience, but especially when it's a lot of young founders and maybe people that haven't been through business the way for as many years maybe that I have, and know how beneficial it is to have people that can actually really communicate the complexity of your product to everyday people. um, it wasn't working anymore, and it came down to, was I going to hide my light and my message in the name of another company,
hmm.
or would I just go back to doing my own thing and helping everybody? And so I left, and I ended up getting offers like everywhere. And so I really just decided for myself, I can definitely help more than one company, and I can bring a lot of value to this space. So let me stay out on my own. But for companies that I really believe in, or organizations I really believe in, sometimes I'll come on as an advisor, or
Hmm.
we'll work on something where like I'll help create educational content for them or something like that. So I love it because this is more me. I love being creative. I love working with CEOs and founders and executives on saying, okay, well, what are your problems? And I can help actually in this area.
Hmm.
So I do better when I do that. So um, it's actually better now, because I was kind of limited before to only talking about supply chain logistics, which I love, by the way, and I could talk about that like all day. So that's like another
It
whole
is. It is
conversation.
a great blockchain use case.
It is,
Yes.
and I definitely miss talking about it, but I haven't really stopped. So I've just kind of right now I'm just very heavily into fintech. But what I will say is I'm with actually a fintech connector company, and that's actually something that I think it's something that actually I would love to talk to you more about offline, because
Okay.
I think a lot of you would benefit from it, because fintech is really um, it's about utilizing blockchain, AI, all of these innovative technologies, and improving uh, financial technology and advances in finances. So, what I love the most is like one of the companies that I'm actually writing about right now, doing a series for in the media, is a company that is, I don't know if you guys have heard of them,
Oh
Cardano,
yeah.
IOHK, yeah, with Charles Hodgkinson and Huskinson. And I love their work that they're doing in Africa. And I got to meet some of these women that they're helping to actually educate in Africa, train them, certify them in the tech, and then working with them to help their own towns,
Hmm.
like you know what I mean, like right in Ethiopia. And when I heard about that, I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
just
have to
can't.
be a part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I really had to say, there is a bigger reason that I am in blockchain. And if I jump on another bandwagon and join another company that's helping with, let's say, uh, um, driverless trucks, right? That's an example of a company that came to me. Then I would be down that road again, only able to talk about that. So I love it now because now I can go on stage, and if I want to, I can talk about supply chain logistics. If I want to talk about the work and how fintech is helping to bring banking access to people that literally have no access to banking or money,
The
to
underserved.
even put their utilities on, if they have any utilities, that's where the impact is. So for you guys in here that are really learning about the impacts of blockchain, where you fit in, at the end of the day, it comes down to there's so many aspects that blockchain can help in the world. So what are you passionate about? And I promise you, blockchain is going to be touching that area. So really get clear on like, who do you want to help? If it's really about helping, serving Blacks with wealth creation and all of that, fintech and my whole connection with this fintech connector, which is, this is what we're doing. We're helping to get everybody up to speed, understanding the benefits of blockchain for financial wealth.
Right.
And the future of these, banking, it tackles cybersecurity. I mean, it tackles all these areas. So one of the things that I think would be really awesome for you guys is we have an entire platform filled with extremely high caliber executives, founders, CEOs that are either innovators or investors.
Okay.
And I would love to chat with you more about seeing if we could, if I could even get you in touch with the founder of that company, because there's so much that we are doing and it's completely aligned with what you guys are building here.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Well, you and I will definitely talk offline because I think we have a lot more to share with you. And Richard, I've seen your comments. You asked the questions about different ways that you can make money in blockchain. Tawana, thanks for answering. Also, Richard, I've done like 4 or 5 videos on our YouTube channel with regards to different blockchain jobs, different blockchain businesses that you could start. So you can go through our YouTube channel and check those out. They're quick 5 to 10 minute videos with a lot of different ideas of blockchain businesses that you can start. So outside of crypto.
You're welcome, everybody. And I'm sorry I've been missing all the chat comments because I'm on my phone, so they pop up for a second and then they disappear.
Yeah. So, but we want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Happy 4th of July to all of you. Please don't forget, if you're not an inner circle member within Black Blockchain Consultants, we'd love to have you. Come to blackblockchainconsultants.com and click be a member. You can see all the member benefits. We have a lot of great conversations, and we are really, really moving forward with our company, which is Blockchain Consortium International and the Center for Blockchain Studies. We're going to be revenue producing in the next 3 to 4 months with regards to those companies. So if you want to find out what we're doing there, definitely be an inner circle member, and then you can reach out to Tawana for more of that information. Cherie, thank you so much. You and I will connect after the holiday, and we will definitely want to become more involved with you. How can people follow you on your favorite platform?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the best thing for if you want to follow me about blockchain stuff would be LinkedIn. So I'm just my first and last name, Cherie Aimée, on LinkedIn. So definitely feel free to add me tonight if you want, and I'll connect you. But you can also find me on Twitter. That's at XO Cherie Aimée. And my website right now is cherieaimee.com, CherieAimee.com. That's completely being revamped, but I'll always be over there. So
fantastic. All righty then,
Richard.
everybody. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
And
You
we'll
too.
talk to everybody next week. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Cherie.
Thank you.